How's it going, Yankee fans? Welcome back to Fireside Yankees. We got a trio today for you. Alex, Ryan, and Sam, the whole squad, except for Aiden, not here today. But we love you, Aiden. Hopefully, you're going to be with us on the next one. And ultimately, today, we're going to talk about how the Yankees have a chance to get this thing back on track. Now, we've talked about Yamamoto. We've talked about Lee. We've talked about everybody, Juan Soto. And we're going to keep going at it because you guys know as much as we do, there's a way back for this team. And I think it has to be some sort of blend of spending, acquiring, and prospect inclusion, because at the end of the day, you can't just spend, and hope for the best. And because you're going to strike out on some of those guys, as we've seen. Rodon's bad first year. We saw a couple of guys that were acquired via trade and expensive ones that at that, like Josh Donaldson, fall by the wayside. And I think there's an opportunity for this Yankee team to invest in younger players with a lot more upside that aren't 37-year-old freaking just body bags at this point. Like, I think we need guys that have youth, guys that have upside, and guys that have durability. And that's what Ryan and we've been talking about that a lot lately. Durability, number one thing. The Yankees need guys that show up every day and play. And they haven't had that in quite a while. So I'm excited to kind of talk about what the Yankees can do here, what the blend has to look like in your guys' perspectives as well as mine. I think we're all on the same page here. Most of us in the fans and on YouTube and whatnot are definitely on the same page that we need to spend, acquire, but also do it with this in mind. Prospects need to step up, keep some costs down at other positions, and allow us to leverage our funds appropriately into young, durable talent. So, I'll start with you, Ryan, because you're at the top of the box on the right next to me. And we'll talk about exactly, what you think this offseason needs to entail, the blend that this front office can go out and actually achieve to get on pace to get back into World Series contention in 2024.
Yeah, so, as you mentioned, I think blend is a really good word to use here. I feel like everybody's trying to find the thing that the Phillies are doing that allows them to overperform. Why are the Rangers so good in terms of offense in the postseason? That bullpen's a little bit different, but the offense has been very good. Why are the Astros every year so reliably good? And it's like, well, it's not just one specific thing. Like, we can try to pinpoint the things they do really well, but when it comes down to it, like baseball, it's a game that, quite honestly, there's a lot of different ways to quote unquote win, you'd say, but those three teams have kind of shared a couple of things in common. They have, they're superstar guys. They're defined core players that, these guys are going to show up no matter what. These guys are, you expect great things out of them. For the Philadelphia Phillies, it's been Trey Turner and Bryce Harper. On the pitching side of the ball, you'd argue Zach Wheeler is kind of in that tier of like, just you expect them to show up and show out. For the Texas Rangers, it's been obviously their big money acquisitions in Corey Seager and Marcus Semien. Adolis Garcia's kind of graduated into that role as well. And then for the Texas Rangers, the Houston Astros, you have Jordan Alvarez, Alex Bregman, Jose Altuve, and Kyle Tucker, who those four guys have just been there like, hey, these are my core guys. We kind of build the team around them and we'll plug in play pieces wherever we need them. But they also have young talent that's come up and given them production. For the Astros, Yanier Diaz, Hunter Brown, two guys who kind of stand out. Chas McCormick's not a rookie, but he's not necessarily a veteran either. I think he's in his first full season of starting. For the Texas Rangers, Leody Tavares made a sick catch against Jordan Alvarez. I know they lost that game, but just an insane play. And has come up with multiple big hits for them. Not necessarily a big bat in the regular season, but a steady defender, just a pretty good player. And then Evan Carter has been insane for them, right? That's been a huge get. Josh Jung has been awesome for them. Making savvy acquisitions with Jordan Montgomery and Nathan Eovaldi. Like, if you think about it, Scherzer's been a complete disaster because of injuries and just not being him. Jacob deGrom went down with a UCL tear early in the season, and you would still argue that when it comes to pound for pound, like pitcher for pitcher, when you have Nathan Eovaldi and Jordan Montgomery on the mound, you have a really good chance to win, right? Like that's just really good, being all in, going out and making big financial investments. The Yankees have the financial capital to do that, and I don't know why they don't commit to that all the time, but if you want to say, well, money isn't the only way to win a title, that's fair. Like, you can't just outspend everybody and expect that works. The Mets and the Yankees outspent everybody and didn't win much this year. If you look at the Astros, they've done a really good job of internal development, right? When Garrett Cole left, Framber Valdez kind of stepped up and became one of the better starters in baseball. When Carlos Correa left, Jeremy Pena has not been a star-level player, but he's been a pretty good shortstop, and pretty good sometimes is all you need. When George Springer left, that kind of coincided with when Kyle Tucker really took off, right? So when you're able to just consistently develop guys internally that can become, productive major league players, it makes it so that you can hyper-focus your financial allocations on the guys you need to keep, right? They needed to pay Altuve, right? He was hitting free agency. They needed to pay Alvarez. They wanted to extend him. They wanted to make sure he didn't leave. Justin Verlander, they wanted to bring him back, and then initially when they brought him in and then extended him 2 times, to make that financial investment, you need to be cheap in other places. Unfortunately, that's just how owners are. Yes, they could spend more. They're not going to. That's an argument we'll never win. But for the New York Yankees, right? Like they have their superstars in Aaron Judge and Garrett Cole, right? Like you could argue they have the best hitter and the best pitcher in the American League on any given day, but they don't really have that like requisite talent, the guys around them, right? Gleyber's kind of evolved into more of a steady guy. You love that, but there are rumors about trading him because of money. You know what I mean? Like that's not the type of move that you make when you're trying to win a World Series, in my eyes, right? If you look at the rotation even, right? Like that rotation was supposed to be really good. Right now, it's a lot of question marks. Like, what is Rodon going to be next year? How many innings can Michael King give you? Is Clark Schmidt going to take that next step? What is Nestor Cortez going to look like, right? Like, there are a lot of questions there. That doesn't mean they can't be good, but it's not a sure thing. Their bullpen has reliably just always been good. I do see a little more swing and miss. I think they're a little bit too prone to just giving up a bunch of BABIP balls. And if you look at the Houston Astros, what they've done really well, why their bullpens every year in October just lights out. They happen to lead the league in strikeout percentage from their bullpen since 2017. They happen to have the guys with the best stuff plus numbers. If you look at Texas, what they've been able to do with their bullpen or what they haven't been able to do, they have been able to find those guys who come out of the bullpen and they've got ridiculous stuff. Nobody in that bullpen necessarily blows you away outside of like a Aroldis Chapman in terms of stuff plus. And even then, he's like, we lived through Aroldis Chapman, right? And Sam, I want to kind of segue leading off with that, but like Chapman kind of resembles that like unreliable, just like not consistent guy. They got rid of him, sure, but they still have a lot of guys like that on their team. Sam, do you feel like that's something that we like? I feel like there's a lot of just like questions and unreliability and just things that this team they don't have a lot of sure things on this team. And I think that's their biggest issue right now.
Yeah, so the biggest thing that I'm pulling from the 2023 playoffs is that, the Yankees aren't in the playoffs. I think it's a pretty obvious thing. I don't know how many times we have to gloss over the fact that they just did make the playoffs and the first time in forever, right? But the biggest thing that I'm pulling from this playoffs, and I think that a lot of Yankee fans are pulling from this playoffs, is this has been a huge stain on Brian Cashman. We're seeing numerous amounts of players that Brian Cashman has had and has traded away and has gotten rid of that are performing. Jordan Montgomery is the A1 example. Didn't think that he was a postseason performer whatsoever. Traded him away for Harrison Bader, who was an injury-prone player. Isn't even on the roster anymore. Jordan Montgomery went out, shoved against the Houston Astros. That was a key contributor. Bryce Harper is another guy that we 1,000% should have gone after and probably should have signed. I don't know the full story on that, but I know that the opportunity was there for him to be scooped up, and we got Stanton instead. And again, I don't know the full story, but that is a player, when you have the financial flexibility like the New York Yankees have, that you go out and flex your muscles. And right now, what I'm thinking with this team, and I feel like we've been doing this for the past 3 or 4 years, is we walk into the off seasons and we draw out these insane, like, what are we going to do in the offseason? Like, who are we going to trade for? Let's get this big name player and that big name player, and let's sign this guy. And I feel like we walk out of every offseason relatively empty-handed as compared to what we walk into. I mean, we were talking about Corey Seager a couple years ago, Marcus Semien, Matt Olson, those kind of players. And granted, we did get Carlos Rodon last year, and we re-signed Aaron Judge, and that was huge for us. But realistically, walking into 2023, this team didn't make any massive improvements on a offense that struggled awfully down the second half last year and was this team's downfall during the course of this season when they went 82-80. So I think that realistically, what I'm waiting for this team and this front office and this organization to do is to finally flex that financial muscle and go out and, sign Yamamoto and trade for Soto. And we can say all these things hypothetically, but will they actually happen? I don't know if I necessarily have that faith as a fan that we're going to get what you guys have been talking about, this blend of, a young crop of players and then these superstars, these core guys that can come in and just create a group of 3, 4, 5 guys that can headline a championship roster that will be around here for a long time. Because right now, it just seems very bleak. And there's a lot of work that they need to work on in the offseason. You hope that your young guys can develop. You hope that Volpe takes another step next year. You hope that Peraza can slide into third base and is a consistent performer. You hope that a guy like Oswaldo Cabrera can bounce back from a poor year last year after a decent rookie season, right? And then, what do you do with your veteran presences? If they trade Gleyber Torres, I think it would be an absolute monstrosity. And I will never understand people on Twitter that are talking about it or on any social media for that matter. I remember we put out a couple weeks ago a thing for Gleyber Torres for Matt Brash. Dude, if we got Gleyber Torres for Matt Brash, I would genuinely be very upset because that is a 123 WRC plus player that was your best qualified hitter out of 3 qualified hitters on the Yankees, mind you, this year, and was the second best offensive performer this year behind Aaron Judge. If they ended up selling this guy off in the offseason strictly because of financial purposes, I would be angry and I would be furious. And I'm going to be honest with you guys. This is a player that I was calling for his head a couple years ago, but he improved and he took the steps, and he is an incredibly consistent bat and a great player on this team that needs to be a part of this core if they're going to win a championship in the next couple of years. So my biggest thing pulling out of this is I'm waiting for them to just flex that muscle. Just be the Yankees, be the evil empire, go out and spend the money, go out and make the big name trades. If you're not going to do it, then we're kind of stuck in the mud. What's really going to happen? Are we going to go back to the ALCS next year and lose to the Astros after maybe they win a World Series again this year? Who knows? But I'm just waiting for this organization to realize that there's a real sense of urgency here, that this team needs to start winning again before the fan base is truly, truly happy. And, it's going to be a long 3-4 months that we're going to see these moves kind of play out. And I'm honestly really excited for it. I think it's going to be really entertaining.
It is going to be. And I'll throw in something that you kind of hit on. I want to piggyback off of one really important point that you made about Gleyber Torres. How many players have we seen come to New York and struggle to grow and develop and get better and reach their peak potential because they're not mentally capable? Like, they're not mentally able to handle the New York media. Gleyber Torres is one of the guys, the very few amount of guys that we have that can handle it. And he's gotten better as a Yankee. I don't understand why people want to get rid of players like that. We've watched Joey Gallo just degrade in front of our eyes. We've watched Aaron Hicks degrade in front of our eyes. We've watched Clint Frazier degrade in front of our eyes. We've watched guys just fall apart because they don't have the mental fortitude to play for the New York Yankees. Gleyber Torres does. Why on earth would you want to get rid of somebody that has that fortitude? And we're desperately always trying to find players that can stand up in the Bronx, shake off a strikeout, and hit an opposite field homer when you need it most. One of the guys that was one of our best offensive weapons, best with runners in scoring position, and obviously not the best defensive year, but he had 9 defensive runs saved in 2022. We know he can be great. We know he can be a great defender. If he puts it all together with the lowest strikeout rate of 14.6%, I believe it was around there this past season, you're looking at a player that's not only well-rounded, but a guy that you can commit to long-term. He's 26 years old, my friends. 26 years old. Do you want to go after another 35-year-old veteran? Go after Matt Chapman if you want. Go after those older veteran guys that are going to cost you an arm and a leg and see how it pans out. We've gone down this route before. I don't want to go down that route again because at the end of the day, we got to be getting younger, more athletic, and with more upside. We can't keep getting guys that are past their prime or have already seen the peak of their potential like Donaldson. Rizzo's even one of those guys. We know what Rizzo is. We know what he's always been. I love Rizzo, but at the end of the day, we're going to have to think about him after this upcoming season. He's gone. They're not going to pick up his club option for the most part. I mean, that's $20 million right there. A young prospect that could fill those shoes at a cheap price point. I know you guys are going to love this one. Ben Rice. Start playing him at first base in the minor league system. Let him develop. Let him grow. The guy's got a legit bat. He won the Yankees Minor League Hitter of the Year award this year, guys. One of the most developed players that we've seen. Give him opportunities. He's such a good dude. He always answers us on Instagram when we ask him how he's doing. He's such a great guy. This is one of those players that has the fortitude and the work ethic to become a fantastic player for the Yankees. Now, you can spend. Why? Because you have cost-cutting nature. You have cost-cutting strategies in place already. The bullpen is really, really cheap and efficient. We have Ian Hamilton under contract till 2029 before he's a free agent. Like, that's ridiculous. Still got Clay Holmes until 2025. You have so many good arms. Johnny Brito could be a phenomenal young arm for this bullpen. You still got some guys coming up, Clayton Beater, all this stuff. So at the end of the day, listen. If you want to go out and get Yamamoto, $200 million, you can afford to do it. Why? Because Luis Severino, the $12.5 million in luxury tax salary, gone. Domingo Germán, his arbitration, gone. He's not going to be on this team next year. Frankie Montes, if you want to move on, gone. This is, maybe they keep him at a cheap 1-year deal, but you can move on. That's good. So end of the day, we have the money to spend. And the youngsters that are taking up reps and keeping costs low, Austin Wells is trending towards being a starter on this team. Oswald Peraza is pre-arbitration. Anthony Volpe is pre-arbitration. Maybe Ben Rice ends up becoming your first baseman pre-arbitration. How many players here are extremely cheap that we have? You know what I mean? This is an opportunity for the Yankees to say, all right, take all these youngsters, put them in prominent roles and keep our costs down. Michael King, another guy. Clark Schmidt, another guy. Make the moves. You got the money. You have the protection from your youngsters. The older guys are going to be gone at some point. Eventually 2028, Stanton's gone. DJ LeMahieu, going to be gone. Rizzo's going to be gone after this year, most likely. You have Aaron Judge. You have Garrett Cole. Now's the time to spend. Now's the time to fortify the roster around two of the best players in baseball. If we waste these guys' prime, I will never forgive Brian Cashman for that. Ryan, Sam, I know you guys agree. If they do not get to a World Series while Aaron Judge is in his prime and Garrett Cole is coming off a Cy Young, back-to-back MVP Cy Young award-winning team players here, and we're not going to even sniff the playoffs, you know what I mean? I will never forgive Cashman for that. I don't know about you guys, Ryan. I'll let you get your last point in here. This team has to put their money where their mouth is because they've got the young talent now. They've got the core. The money is just money at the end of the day. Winning a World Series in Yankee Stadium in the Bronx will bring more money to the Yankees than they've ever experienced. People are starving for it. They will get more rich off of the people that show up and the people that watch. And what it does, New York is the biggest media market. If they want to bring a lot of money to the sport, they're going to win a freaking World Series. And they got to put their money out where it needs to go because it's possible they can flip this thing around. They just actually have to be aggressive with it.
Yeah, so I actually thought that you guys made really salient points talking about the financials, right? Like, hey, the Yankees can definitely spend. And I'm going to list off players who we knew were at least interested in going either to the East Coast or flat out to the Yankees. And I'm going to give you where they rank in WAR since signing their contract. So I'm not saying Matt Olson because Matt Olson cost prospects. I'm not going to sit here. I'm only going to talk about players who all it took was money. Freddie Freeman finished. He's the best first baseman in baseball since signing. Bryce Harper, the 5th best outfielder in WAR since signing. Manny Machado, 4th best third baseman since signing. Corey Seager, 4th best shortstop. Simeon, 2nd best first baseman. Kevin Gossman, first in F4 for starting pitchers. Dansby Swanson, 4th. Trey Turner had a down year, 8th still, top 10. Brandon Nimmo, 5th. Francisco Lindor, 2nd. So all of those guys, well, I guess Lindor was a trade, but I'm pretty sure he was willing to, he plays in New York. You know what I mean? Like, it's not like the Matt Olson deal. The Yankees might have gotten outbid there. Francisco Lindor, the Mets, it was a salary dump for all I care. Like Carlos Carrasco was thrown in that deal. Come on, let's be real here. But point is, those were all players that, for the most part, if you just made the financial commitment necessary, these players would have been on your team. You would have had a top 10 either the best first baseman in baseball. Myriad of just top 10 infielders on this list. Bryce Harper, who, let's just be real here. This guy at this point is just, when the postseason comes, when October is there, over the regular season, whenever baseball is played, that dude shows up. We talk about like question marks in rotation. Kevin Gossman's been durable and he makes less than Carlos Rodon does. Why wasn't that guy a Yankee, right? Like we could sit here and talk about, well, sometimes you miss and sometimes you don't. You made a good point, Alex, about how like sometimes you just strike out. But as Sam put it, like, when are we going to get that investment? Look at all these superstars who have signed in free agency, all these top-notch players, guys who have killed the Yankees. Like every Kevin Gossman steps on the mound, you assume the Yankees aren't going to hit well that day. Every time that, you have to watch Bryce Harper in the postseason, he's going to hit. Every time that you watch that Braves lineup, and, obviously Dansby Swanson now on the Cubs, you just assume that whoever's in that lineup is going to mash, and Swanson was a product of that. Right. And you see center field, like Brandon Nimmo may not have been the center fielder of the Yankees. Maybe he would have slotted better in left field. But you think, man, the Yankees need some on base skills and they need a left-handed outfielder. Right there. All it was going to take was money. And they didn't pull the trigger because they didn't want to make the financial investment. They can talk about how, well, we want to be sustainably good. You're the New York Yankees. You're never going to be bad, right? Like I don't know what this thought process of you can't go all in because it'll cost you World Series titles. There's nobody upset that 2013, 2014, and 2016 happened because it was a direct result of winning the 2009 World Series. I can do a year like 2023 if it's the direct result of winning a World Series 5 years ago. Because that's the product and that's the nature of baseball. Maybe the Phillies won't be good in 10 years. Maybe, the Phillies will be bad. Who cares? Right? Like I don't think they care. I don't think fans really care that much. I think the issue is that baseball's kind of become this, hey, we need to maximize profit. We need to keep our profitability window long enough. And if the Yankees, make the playoffs, the majority of the time over the span of 20 to 25 years, they'll win a title and fans will be okay with it. Stop punting away opportunities to win the World Series. You owe it to the fan base. If you're going to keep, prices, anybody here who's watching this video has definitely been to a Yankee game or at least seen Yankee prices. It's ridiculous. You got to pay an arm and a leg to go to a game and then pay an arm and a leg to eat. Like, make the financial investment, right? There's zero reason why if Juan Soto's available in trade and you know that you have a bunch of pitching prospects, that he lands anywhere else. And let's say the Padres don't trade him. If that man hits free agency and he is on any ball club other than the New York Yankees, at that point, don't sell us the bill of goods that you care about winning. That tells me you don't. You already let a generational superstar in his 20s, a left-handed hitter who's on his knees. I mean, Bryce Harper shaved his beard when he came to New York in 2018. You guys remember that? The dude was like, I'll play center field. I'll play first base. I'll do whatever. I want to, my dreams, I want to play in pinstripes, all that shit. And the Yankees didn't sign him. And they didn't give him a meeting. They didn't give him a meeting. I don't know if that was a Cashman or Hal thing. I'm pretty sure it was a Hal thing. But, dude, I mean, when superstars are dying to play in the Bronx and you're saying, nah, we're good, that doesn't sit right with me. And that's not going to sit right with anybody until this team wins the World Series. And I don't think that's going to happen until we get superstars.
Yeah, so, the last thing that I'll kind of cap off with, I do have a couple things. I do want to talk about Harper for a minute. I am pretty convinced that if the Yankees would have signed Harper back in, 2019, that was when he was a free agent, I'm pretty convinced we probably would have won a World Series at this point. I think 2022 probably would have been relatively locked up. I don't know how crazy that sounds, but I genuinely think that if Bryce Harper was a Yankee last year in 2022, I think that we would have won a World Series. Kevin Gausman being a Toronto Blue Jay absolutely hurts my soul because Kevin Gausman is one of my favorite pitchers to watch in baseball just because he throws that disgusting splitter that nobody can seem to hit for absolutely no reason, and he just continues to do it over and over and over again. And that guy in pinstripes would be an absolute dog. And then realistically, when you think about what this roster is going to look like in 2 years, I think that realistically, you could have 5 young guys that are going to start in major positions. You're going to have Austin Wells at catcher. Maybe you have Ben Rice at first base. You're going to have Volpe at shortstop. You're going to have Peraza at third base. And then, hopefully Dominguez is, recovery goes back well, like whatever. That's your center fielder of the future, right? So if you have 5 young guys that are going to be on pre-arb deals that are not going to be making any money whatsoever, why is there an excuse for you to not go out there and spend money right now? I don't care what kind of prospect haul it's going to cost to go out and get a guy like Juan Soto. I don't care what kind of money that has to be shelled out for a guy like Yamamoto or anybody that they want to sign in the near future, right? I know how much money I spend in merch every single year. I know how much money I spend on tickets every single year. And I know that you guys do. I went to Yankee Stadium and me and 3 of my buddies all got meals. It was $100. That is a lot of change, man. That's a ton of money. And I know where that money goes. It's going right back in the house pockets. So for this team, they now have to go out and invest into a World Series winning ball club because at this point, it's been since 2009. I was 9 years old. I just turned 24 years old today. I haven't seen a World Series championship in 15 years. So why don't we go out, make that investment, make that happen, and it realistically will work out, and the fans will absolutely clamor and love Hal and Cashman if they do some stuff like this offseason. So they need to go out and make a serious investment in this ball club in the future because with so many young guys that you think are going to be major producers in the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years, you can go out and spend money at this point because you're getting a lot of that old money off the books, like we talked about with Donaldson and Hicks off the books at this point, which is incredible. Love it. But now you got to go out and respend that money and spend it in the right places. And I don't know if I have complete faith that they do it, but, we're still just going to hang on hope.
Bro, if we win a World Series, Hal can raise the price of weenies $5, $10. I don't care, bro. I just want to watch this team win, bro. Raise the freaking price of soda. I don't give a rat's ass, bro. I just want to watch winning baseball. You know what I mean? That's people going to these games, watching the team lose and out of playoff contention by late August, essentially, and having to pay $15 for a weenie. OD, it's crazy. It's not okay. It's not okay. $280 million payroll and you can't win baseball games. And for what it's worth, Ryan, when we were podcasting in September, begging this team to call up prospects, begging them. You want to know what happened after they called up prospects? They had one of the best records in baseball in the month of September. You know what? And that's what frustrates me, that we were begging them to do what they ended up doing, and they end up winning baseball games. It's freaking ridiculous. So all we can hope now is that they make the right decisions, and the right decisions to give some of the load to their prospects and spend the money on talent. Like, think about a core. Like, Sam, what you just said, Wells, Dominguez, Rice, Volpe, Peraza, and then you have a 24-year-old superstar in Juan Soto and a 25-year-old superstar in Yamamoto And you're looking at yourself like, we have a ridiculous core for the next decade. Decade of elite core. You want to know the difference between the Orioles and the Yankees? The Orioles are going to have to let their star players leave eventually because they're not going to pay them. The Yankees can afford to pay their young guys to stay. And that's why the Yankees need to do this now, because they can pay these young guys to build a core and a foundation. And right now, their foundation is invested in older players. They need to reset that age gap. They need to lessen it. They need to cost average down to the 20s instead of the mid 30s. That's where we're all right now. They have a chance to do that. They can't miss this train, because Soto, if they miss out on Soto, they're going to regret it. And we're going to be sitting here in a couple of years asking the same questions. The same ones we're asking about Bryce Harper, we're going to be asking the same ones about Soto. I can guarantee it. So that's kind of my stance. I think we're on the same page here. I think a lot of you guys are too. Always happy to hear perspectives below in the YouTube comment sections. Make sure to like and subscribe as always. We'll catch you guys on the next Fireside Yankees episode.